She was a very professional officer. She was very fit. She was intelligent. The classmates spoke highly of her. That this was the job that she was meant to do.
A moment to remind us that there are bad people in the world.
A young lady, a young mother, a young daughter, a young officer, in the prime of her life, was killed in a senseless act of violence.
She made her presence known when she walked through a room.
Time in between kind of helps you to get your steps back. But I don't think life will ever be the same.
Thank God for the men and women who proudly wear a uniform every day. Women like Officer Chatéri Payne, who willingly took an oath to serve the citizens of this city.
Chatéri Payne had already done the hardest part. She had found another apartment. She had paid the deposit. A new key was coming. She was preparing to take her 2-year-old daughter and leave the man she had been living with. But Tre'Veon Anderson knew she was going. And before Chatéri could carry a single box into that new apartment, the father of her child sent a message to his cousin. "Let's knock it out tomorrow." The next evening, Chatéri put on the police uniform she had worked so hard to earn. Her badge was pinned to her chest. Her daughter was inside the house. Her vehicle was waiting in the driveway. She stepped outside to report for the night shift. She never made it into the car. Gunfire erupted in front of her own home. Chatéri was shot in the lung and in the head. Anderson called 911 and presented himself as the devastated boyfriend. He told police that a mysterious man dressed in black had shot Chatéri and run away. He claimed he had fired at the fleeing attacker. He remained at the scene, calm and cooperative, giving officers a complete story before they had even finished securing the driveway. But the stranger in black did not exist. The murder had been planned inside Chatéri's own relationship. The man calling for help was the man who had arranged for her to die. And the cruelest part was that Anderson had wanted the same badge Chatéri was wearing when she was killed. He had applied to join the Shreveport Police Department twice. He had been rejected twice. Chatéri applied, graduated from the academy, and became the officer he had failed to become. Then she decided to leave him. By the time investigators recovered the deleted messages, tracked the phones, and found the murder weapon, the truth was impossible to hide. This was not a robbery. It was not a random attack. It was not an unknown gunman targeting an officer. It was a boyfriend who could not accept that the woman beside him was succeeding, moving forward, and preparing to build a life without him. Before we go deeper, subscribe to Crime Scene Exposed for real stories where love, control, jealousy, and betrayal turn deadly. Because Chatéri Payne did not die because she failed to leave. She died after she had already made the decision to go.
She was a very professional officer. She was very fit. She was intelligent. The classmates spoke highly of her, that this was the job that she was meant to do.
Chatéri Alyse Payne was born on June 30th, 1996, in Shreveport, Louisiana. Those closest to her also knew her as Lisa. She attended Captain Shree High School, where she ran track. Long before she carried a badge, she had already developed the discipline to keep moving through exhaustion, pressure, and discomfort. That determination later carried her into law enforcement. Chatéri was hired by the Shreveport Police Department on July 27, 2018. Entering the police academy was only the beginning. She still had to complete the physical training, classroom instruction, testing, and field preparation required to wear the uniform. She did the work. On November 16, 2018, Chatéri graduated as a member of Academy Class 79. There were 24 cadets in that class. The ceremony marked the beginning of what should have been a long career. Her excitement was visible. She posted photographs in uniform. Her family celebrated her. The badge represented stability, purpose, and a future she had earned for herself and her daughter. Chatéri did not simply like the appearance of being a police officer. She loved the work. During one event, she escorted Shreveport's mayor in an elevator. She looked at him and said, plainly, that she loved being a police officer. She had found the career she wanted. Her training officer noticed how naturally she adapted to patrol. He later wrote a formal memorandum to the police chief praising her work. Her report writing was excellent. Her traffic stops carried the confidence of an officer with far more experience. She showed energy, compassion, and a willingness to learn. Chatéri had barely begun, but the people training her already believed she could become exceptional. She also had a 2-year-old daughter named Aubrey. Every shift required Chatéri to balance 2 demanding roles. Before she could leave the house to protect strangers, she had to care for the little girl depending on her at home. She prepared meals, managed routines, made sure her daughter was settled. Then she put on the uniform and went to work. From the outside, Chatéri appeared to be building exactly the kind of life many young mothers struggle to create. She had a profession, a steady income, a child she loved, and a future that seemed to be opening in front of her. Chatteri's mother remembered how determined she was throughout the police academy.
She would call, I'm here, I'm on my lunch break, I don't have no food. So I would have to go up to the police academy and get her, or we've been running and it's hot and I would have to go get her so she could come take a shower and take her bag. Like you're the only one doing this. I'm not like this. Like, why am I constantly here every other day bringing you something or coming to do something? But she was just saying how hard it was and how hard she had to work.
That pride makes what happened only weeks after graduation even more painful. Chatéri had survived every challenge the academy placed before her, only to be betrayed by the man waiting for her at home. Her relationship with Tre'Veon Anderson had become dangerous. Anderson was not simply a boyfriend visiting occasionally. He was Chatteri's live-in partner and the father of Aubrey. They shared a home, a child, and the appearance of family. Photographs showed them standing together and smiling. In one image, Chatéri wore her police uniform while Anderson stood beside her in a shirt congratulating Officer Payne. That photograph looked supportive. It looked proud. It looked like a man celebrating the mother of his child. But a photograph can preserve a smile while hiding everything happening when the camera is gone. The relationship had already included domestic violence. Chatéri understood danger professionally, but knowledge does not make anyone immune to control inside an intimate relationship. Abusive relationships are not always obvious from the outside. A person may continue working, continue smiling, continue caring for a child, continue wearing a uniform, and still be calculating the safest way to leave. Chateri's mother, Letha Nash Hudson, felt that something was wrong. She urged her daughter to return home. She told Chatéri directly that she did not trust the people around her. A mother's warning cannot always identify exactly what is coming, but Letha's discomfort was strong enough that she wanted her daughter and granddaughter under her roof. Chatéri listened to the danger in her own way. She began planning an exit. She did not announce everything publicly. She did not wait for Anderson to approve. She found an apartment. She paid the deposit. She began creating a separate future. That detail matters because leaving is often described as though it happens in one dramatic moment. A woman grabs a bag, slams a door, drives away. In reality, leaving can begin quietly. A private search for housing, money moved aside, documents gathered, a deposit paid, a key arranged. Chatéri had reached that stage. Her decision was no longer emotional. It had become practical. There was another address waiting for her. The relationship on Midway Avenue had an expiration date, and Anderson knew it. His reaction was not to accept the end. He began planning how to stop it permanently. The badge added another layer to the resentment surrounding them. Anderson had applied to become a Shreveport police officer twice. The department rejected him both times. Chatéri applied once. She was hired. She completed the academy. She wore the uniform. She received the respect, career, and identity Anderson had pursued without success. Chatéri was moving forward professionally. Anderson was watching her succeed in the exact institution that had denied him. Then she made plans to move forward personally without him. She had the badge. She had the apartment. She had the child. And she was preparing to take control of her own life. The night before the murder, Anderson contacted his cousin, Lawrence Pierre, too. The message was short. Let's knock it out tomorrow. Without context, those words could mean almost anything. But the events of the next day gave them only one meaning. January 9th, 2019, began as one of Chateri's final days inside that house, although she did not know how little time remained. She had worked her previous shift. She returned home. She cared for Aubrey. Then she prepared to leave again for the night shift. The routine was ordinary. That was what made the planning against her so cold. Anderson knew her schedule. He knew when she would put on the uniform. He knew when she would walk out of the house. He knew that she would approach her vehicle in the driveway. There would be no need to chase her. No need to force entry. No need to risk confronting her somewhere unpredictable. She would step outside at the same point in her routine, exactly where they expected her to be. Anderson, Pierre, and Glenn Frierson were at the Midway Avenue residence approximately 30 minutes before the shooting. That was not chance. The phone records and location evidence later placed them together. They were already positioned before Chatéri walked through the door. Inside the house was her 2-year-old daughter. Aubrey was too young to understand that the adults around her had turned her home into the setting of a murder plot. Chatéri finished preparing for work. Her full uniform was on. Badge number 1588 was pinned to her chest. She walked outside. The gunfire came quickly. Chatéri was struck multiple times. One bullet entered her lung. Another struck her head. She collapsed before she could begin the shift she had been preparing for. The attack happened just after 8 p.m. A 911 call reached Shreveport Emergency Dispatch. The caller was Tre'Veon Anderson. He told the operator that his girlfriend had been shot outside. He asked for help. Police and emergency responders rushed to Midway Avenue. When officers arrived, Chatéri was critically wounded in the driveway. Anderson was still there. He was detained briefly and placed in a patrol vehicle while officers secured the scene. Then he began giving them his version of events. He said he had been inside the house with Aubrey. He claimed he heard gunshots. He said he ran outside and saw a man dressed completely in black fleeing the area. Anderson claimed he fired at the mystery gunman before realizing Chatéri had been shot. It was a carefully structured story. He gave police a shooter, a direction of escape, a reason his own weapon had been fired, a reason he had remained at the scene, a role for himself as the protective boyfriend who had tried to stop the killer. The story also placed him inside with the child at the critical moment. That version gave investigators something immediate to search for. An unknown man, black clothing, running away from a driveway. While officers began looking for that person, Chatéri was rushed to the hospital. Her mother arrived and waited for doctors to explain whether her daughter could survive. One doctor told Letha that the injury to Chatéri's lung could be repaired. For a moment, that gave her hope. A damaged lung sounded serious, but treatable. Then the doctor explained the head wound. It was fatal. The hope disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. Chatéri died approximately 2 hours after the shooting. She was 22 years old.
I had to leave out, and I just asked him, please let me go back. Please don't take her off the vent don't let her be by herself, but they did. And all I can think about is her lying there and being shot. And what did she think? What was she, how before? And I can't rest because I just think about it.
She had been a Shreveport police officer for only 54 days. Her daughter had been inside the home while her mother was shot outside, and the father of that child was presenting himself to police as a witness. Investigators questioned Anderson. He remained composed. He cooperated. He repeated the mystery gunman story. At that early stage, officers did not yet have enough evidence to charge him. By the following morning, Anderson was released. For a short period, the official investigation focused on the unknown shooter he had described. The community was left believing that someone dressed in black had ambushed a young police officer and escaped into the night. The phantom attacker served Anderson's purpose. It redirected attention away from the relationship. It turned the murder into an outside threat. It allowed him to stand near Chatéri's body while pretending to help investigators find the person responsible. But the lie depended on every participant remaining loyal. Lawrence Pierre did not. Pierre had been present during the planning and at the house before the murder. He knew the man in black did not exist. He knew where the weapon had gone. And eventually, he began speaking to investigators. Pierre admitted his involvement. He explained what had happened. Then he led detectives to the hidden murder weapon. That weapon destroyed the foundation of Anderson's story. The investigation was no longer searching for a stranger. It was examining a conspiracy involving the people closest to the victim. Detectives turned to the phones, and the phones revealed planning that the men had tried to erase. A forensic analyst reconstructed the digital activity surrounding January 9th. Deleted messages were recovered. Location information placed Anderson, Pierre, and Frierson at the Midway Avenue home before the shooting. Their movements were not random. Their communications were not innocent. The message Anderson sent to Pierre the night before came back into view. Let's knock it out tomorrow. The next day, Chatéri was killed. Additional messages showed communication continuing around the time of the murder. The evidence revealed men coordinating before and after the shooting. Attempts had been made to erase the digital trail, but deleting a message from a screen does not always remove it from the deeper record. The very phones they used to plan and manage the crime became some of the strongest witnesses against them. Ballistics completed another part of the picture. Bullet fragments recovered from Chatéri's body were connected to firearms belonging to Pierre and Anderson. The gunfire in the driveway was not the act of one unknown man fleeing through the darkness. The weapons led back to the people inside the conspiracy. Investigators now had Anderson's false 911 story, Pierre's cooperation, the hidden murder weapon, recovered messages, location records, and ballistic evidence. The case moved from suspicion to proof. Anderson, Pierre, and Frierson were arrested and charged with second-degree murder and conspiracy to commit second-degree murder. The arrests revealed the betrayal in full. Chatéri had not been killed by a criminal she encountered while working. She had not been targeted because of an arrest or traffic stop. The danger was not waiting for her somewhere on patrol. It had been living with her. The man she was leaving had used knowledge of her routine to arrange her death. The father of her child had helped create the plan that left that child without a mother. And after the shooting, he used the toddler's presence in the home as part of his false story. He claimed he had been inside caring for Aubrey when the gunfire started. He turned fatherhood into an alibi. As the case moved toward trial, the evidence also exposed the timing behind Chatéri's attempt to leave. She had not been making vague threats to end the relationship. She had taken financial action. The apartment deposit existed. The move was real. That transformed the murder from an unexplained act of domestic violence into the final act of control.
Tonight, family, friends, and co-workers of police officer Chatéri Payne continue to mourn her tragic death. This is video of the police car memorial outside the Shreveport police station. Right now, 3 men are in custody for Payne's murder. Miranda Whittington has more on what was said in today's news conference in regards to the latest details in this case.
A young lady, a young mother, a young daughter, a young officer, in the prime of her life, was killed in a senseless act of violence.
Shreveport Police Chief Ben Raymond and the rest of the department lost one of their own, Officer Chatéri Payne, but now, nearly a week later, arrests have finally been made. Tuesday night, Shreveport police arrested 26-year-old Tre'Veon Anderson, 22-year-old Lawrence Pierre II, and 38-year-old Glenn Frierson, charging them with second-degree murder in connection with Payne's death. KSLA was there when police escorted 2 of the 3 men into custody.
We are still mourning the heinous murder of Officer Payne, but thanks to these men and women, we can have some peace in taking 3 evil cowards off of our streets so they cannot harm anyone else.
Chief Raymond spoke at a news conference Wednesday morning, unveiling new details in this tragic case.
Tre'Veon Anderson, the boyfriend of Chatéri Payne and father of their young child, was present when the shooting occurred.
According to Chief Raymond, the night of the shooting, Anderson told police he was inside the home he shared with Payne on Midway Avenue when he heard gunshots. He went outside and began shooting at a person wearing all black. Anderson was brought in for questioning but released later on that night. Police continue to investigate and recovered evidence that Chief Raymond says shows that Anderson made everything up and was the person who shot and killed Payne. KSLA investigates obtained these affidavits from the Shreveport Police Department breaking down what happened that night. Pierre and Anderson are cousins, and in the arrest records, Pierre admitted to police he was also there during the murder and witnessed Anderson shoot Payne multiple times. Pierre also led investigators to the home where he hid the weapon allegedly used in the murder. The affidavits also revealed Frierson was with Pierre and Anderson during the murder and left with them after.
Thank God for the men and women who proudly wear a uniform every day. Women like Officer Chatéri Payne, who willingly took an oath to serve the citizens of this city.
And while Raymond said he doesn't know if her job contributed to her death, he's thankful for Payne's service and hopes the community will support her family during this difficult time.
Anderson could not stop Chatéri from earning the badge. He could not force the police department to accept him. He could not make her abandon the career she loved. And he could not persuade her to remain inside the relationship. So he used violence to prevent her from reaching the new apartment. I want you to answer one question honestly. Which detail reveals Anderson's character most clearly? The message arranging the murder? The fact that their daughter was inside? Or the way he stood in the driveway and calmly described a killer he knew did not exist? Tell me in the comments, because the courtroom would eventually hear all of it. The prosecution prepared to try the 3 men together. But on April 4th, 2022, the morning jury selection was scheduled to begin. Pierre then became a witness against Anderson and Frierson. The man Anderson had trusted enough to contact before the killing now stood in court and helped explain the conspiracy. Anderson and Frierson went to trial. The proceedings lasted approximately 3 weeks. Jurors heard nearly 11 days of testimony. They were shown the digital reconstruction. They saw the recovered messages. They heard how the phones placed the men at the residence. They learned about the weapons. They heard Pierre describe his role and the involvement of the others. They also heard Anderson's original claim about the man dressed in black. By then, the story sounded exactly like what it was. A cover story built before the police arrived. The prosecution presented Chatéri's career and Anderson's failed applications to the same department. He had tried twice to obtain the badge. Chatéri obtained it and wore it proudly. The prosecution did not have to tell the jury exactly what emotion Anderson felt when he saw her in uniform. The facts allowed jurors to understand the contrast themselves. He had been denied. She had succeeded. Then she planned to leave. And he arranged for her to be shot while she was wearing the uniform he never earned. On April 20th, 2022, the jury returned its verdicts. Tre'Veon Anderson was found guilty of second-degree murder. He was also found guilty of conspiracy to commit second-degree murder. Glenn Frierson was acquitted of both charges. The acquittal meant the jury did not find the evidence against Frierson strong enough to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt. He left the courtroom a free man. The outcomes were different, but the verdict against Anderson was decisive. The grieving boyfriend from a 911 call had been exposed as the architect of the murder. The unknown man in black had vanished from the story. The evidence showed that Anderson's first act after Chatéri was shot was not to tell the truth. It was to manage the investigation. He had attempted to place himself beside the victim rather than among the people responsible for killing her. But the messages, locations, weapons, and testimony dismantled the role he had created. Before sentencing, Chateri's mother addressed the court. By then, Aubrey was no longer the 2-year-old inside the house on the night of the shooting. She had grown older. She had graduated from kindergarten. Her mother had not been there to see it. Letha described a little girl trying to hold on to Chateri's face as the memories became less clear. Aubrey had lost her mother to murder. She had also lost her father to prison. And Letha had lost the freedom to grieve only as a mother because she now had to become a parent again. She was raising the granddaughter Chatéri should have been raising herself. That is one of the hidden costs in domestic homicide. A murder does not end with the victim. It reorganizes an entire family. Grandparents become parents. Children grow up inside court records and memorial photographs. Milestones become reminders. The first day of school, graduations, birthdays. Every celebration carries the space where a mother should be standing. On May 31, 2022, Judge John D. Mosley Jr. sentenced Anderson. Louisiana law required life imprisonment for second-degree murder. Anderson received life in prison without the possibility of parole, probation, or suspension of sentence. For conspiracy to commit second-degree murder, the judge imposed the maximum sentence of 30 years. The 30-year sentence was ordered to run consecutively. It would begin only after the life sentence. The structure of the sentence reflected the planning behind the crime. Anderson was not punished only for the moment gunfire struck Chatéri. He was punished for the agreement, preparation, and coordination that placed her in the driveway. He appealed the conviction. The appeal was reviewed and denied in September 2023. The legal outcome remained in place. Anderson will spend the rest of his life in prison. Pierre will also serve life for his role. No sentence, however, can return Chatéri to the apartment she had paid for. That apartment became one of the most painful symbols in the case. Somewhere, there had been a space she intended to make into a home. A room for Aubrey. A door she could close. A place outside Anderson's control. Chatéri had done what people often tell victims to do. She made a plan. She secured housing. She prepared to leave. Yet the period surrounding separation can be one of the most dangerous moments in an abusive relationship. When control is slipping away, the abuser may escalate. Chateri's decision to leave did not create the violence. Anderson's determination to control the outcome did. She was not killed because she wore a badge. She was not killed because she found an apartment. She was killed because Anderson chose murder when he realized he could no longer control her future. That distinction matters. People sometimes look backward at domestic homicide and ask what the victim should have done differently. Why did she stay? Why did she tell him? Why did she return? Why did she not ask for help? Chateri's story destroys the simplicity of those questions. She was trained in law enforcement. She understood danger. She had family support. She had income. She had secured somewhere else to live. And she was still killed before she could physically leave. The responsibility belongs to the man who planned the murder, not the woman who was trying to escape him. Chatéri was buried on January 19, 2019, at Summer Grove Baptist Church. Law enforcement officers attended from across the region. Her department mourned a colleague whose career had barely begun. The city honored her service. A monument was later erected in her name. At the funeral, Shreveport's police chief chose to focus on Chateri's life rather than allowing Anderson's violence to become the only thing people remembered. That was important, because Anderson controlled Chateri's final night. He does not deserve to control her entire story. Chatéri was a mother who fed her daughter before leaving for work. She was a young officer who moved through traffic stops with confidence. She was a cadet who completed the academy. She was a woman who told the mayor she loved being a police officer. She was building independence. She was planning a new home. She had not given up on herself. The murder froze her at 22, but it did not erase the effort she had already made. Anderson wanted the badge and did not get it. Chatéri earned it. He wanted control of the relationship. Chatéri chose freedom. He created a fake gunman. The evidence exposed him. He attempted to write the ending of her life. But the truth became stronger than the story he gave police. There are several moments in this case that are difficult to forget. The message saying, "Let's knock it out tomorrow." The 30 minutes the men spent positioned at the house before Chatéri came outside. The 2-year-old waiting inside. The false description of a man in black. The weapon hidden after the shooting. The deleted messages returning through forensic recovery. But the detail that stays with me most is the apartment. Chatéri had already paid. She had already chosen herself. A key was coming. She was close enough to freedom that she could almost touch it. Then the man she was leaving made sure she never reached the door. Do you believe the badge intensified Anderson's resentment, or was Chateri's decision to leave the moment that made him act? What does it say about him that he used their child and his own 911 call to build an alibi? And what should families and law enforcement agencies learn from a case where a trained officer was still unable to escape a violent partner safely? Share your opinion respectfully. Chatéri Payne was more than the officer murdered in her driveway. She was Aubrey's mother, Letha's daughter, a new officer with only 54 days behind the badge, and a woman who had already taken the first real steps toward a life of her own. Subscribe to Crime Scene Exposed for more true stories where the person closest to the victim was hiding the most dangerous secret.